I place the blood of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ over this recording and over this information. I encrypt this information in the name of Jesus Christ. I put a hedge of fire around and protection around this information, and I set up smoke screens against the enemy in Jesus' name, that no information would be used or even received unless it's by a child of God with the consent and permission of the Lord Jesus Christ. This is a dream from 2 nights ago. It started out where somebody was showing me a brochure, like a map brochure of a really big hotel. And the hotel was built inside of a waterfall, and it was like on top of the waterfall before the crest where the water comes down. There was like this dry spot on top of the waterfall where the water went around, and it was this big surface of a rock on top of the waterfall. And on this rock, in this rock, there was an opening, and you go inside of the opening, and then you go down inside of this rock on top of this waterfall, and there was a humongous, extremely luxurious hotel built deep inside this waterfall. And the people that were showing me this hotel inside this waterfall were extremely impressed by it, and they thought it was like the coolest thing. And I don't really know who the people were, but this started with just one person showing me this brochure and showing me all these pictures of this hotel. And everything inside the hotel was just extremely luxurious. It was all like gold and marble and just all the best stuff you could possibly imagine. All the furniture, everything was just this huge 5-star hotel. It even said like 5-star in the brochure. And I saw in the dream that there was a price range of hotel rooms that you could get, and the bottom tier of hotel rooms was $89,000 per night, and the top tier of hotel rooms was $101,000 per night. And the person showing me this brochure was just talking about how great it was, and I said, if you spent 10 nights in this room, or 10 nights in this hotel, it's like $1 million. And I just couldn't imagine it in the dream. Yeah, I said, even if I had that much money, there's no way I would blow it at this stupid hotel. And I said also, it looks dangerous. Like all that would have to happen is the water would rise. If the water rose just a little bit on top of that waterfall, it would flood the whole hotel. But the hotel had been there for years, and like decades upon decades. It had been there for a long time, and so the person that I was talking to just didn't seem concerned about it. It was like this old hotel, and the fact that it was like tunneled into the waterfall just seemed dumb and dangerous to me. And the whole idea that it was like tunneled in underground just kind of creeped me out in the dream. I was like, it just seems creepy. I don't know. I don't even care. Like I was just telling him, I don't care. Like I'm not impressed, basically. And I said, even if somebody gave me like a free stay at this hotel, I wouldn't even want to stay in it, because that's kind of creepy. It gives me bad vibes, and it seems really dangerous. And as I'm looking at this brochure, there was somebody else who came up to me. This is the second verse came up, and they were talking about how they heard about this hotel too. It was like famous in that area. It was around this beautiful lake in California. And they were talking about how the hotel was just super famous and like had this reputation. And I told them both I didn't really care. Like I just remained totally unimpressed by it and really wanted nothing to do with it. So then the dream just kind of forwards just a little bit, and I'm in the same area, like I'm in this same building. I was in a very big restaurant slash like mall kind of shopping center thing. It was just this really big commercial area. And the bottom floor of this building was built on a lake, the building that I was in. And I was on the bottom floor and I was about to eat breakfast. I was sitting at this diner that was overlooking this beautiful lake. And outside of the window, as I'm looking outside of the window, sitting at this diner booth thing, I could see people on like the surfboards with the sail on them, kite surfing. And there was this wave that was really big all of a sudden. And there was a few people out like kite surfing on this huge wave, and it was right outside of the window. And I was staring at it thinking like, this is unusual because this is just a big, beautiful, still lake. Like, it's not the ocean, there's not waves. And so I said something to the person that was sitting near me, and I said, look at this huge wave. It's like coming right for this diner. And there's people that are just out like kite surfing on it, like nothing's wrong. Like, this is just really weird. And then as soon as I noticed it, and as soon as I said it, within seconds, this wave just like overshadowed the diner. It went from nice and sunny because of the big windows inside of this diner to just shade. Like the whole inside of the diner was just like under the shade of this wave. It had blocked out the sun, and then it smashed in through the windows. So like half of these big glass windows were totally shattered to overlook the lake. The people that were riding on this wave basically just got slammed right into the windows, into these glass windows. And like half the diner got taken out. And the tables and the booths and everything just got hit with this wave, and then it quickly like receded and it went back out. The water went back out to the lake. And I stood up immediately, and I remember thinking in the dream that there was going to be another wave. And I didn't want to waste any time. I wanted to get out of there as soon as I could. So I stood up and I started to leave the diner before anything else happened. And the wave had receded, and I knew that nobody really got hurt that bad. Like the wave was big enough to smash through the windows and it knocked over some tables and stuff, but it didn't really seem like anybody really got that hurt to me. But I knew there was another one coming. So I stood up to leave, and a few other people in the restaurant started to leave too, but there was also like a portion of people who just seemed like they were just kind of waiting for management or like waiters and waitresses or something to just fix everything and tell them everything was going to be fine, because there was several tables, like half the tables, that were basically unaffected by this wave. So a lot of people didn't even stand up. They're just kind of like sitting there, like just waiting to see what was going to happen next. But me and a few other people seemed to know that it was going to get worse and that there was another wave coming. And I also knew that the second wave was going to be even bigger. So I got up and I started to leave this diner, and I walked out of like the big dining area, and I walked through these doors. And as I'm walking through the doors, trying to leave this big restaurant, this big building, I heard people screaming, and then I heard another wave hit the building again, and it smashed out the rest of the windows. And that second wave was much bigger than the first one, and it just took out like everything in that dining room where I just was. And all of a sudden, people started like really screaming and freaking out, and people were running. But me and a few other people were like at the head of the people who had already decided to leave, and we were trying to get out of there. So I knew not to look back. I just knew I just had to like keep going forward and just get out of this building as fast as possible. And as I'm kind of like, you know, um, like finding my way out of there, because there was several doors. It was like once I got through one door, there was a couple steps. Like you would go up some steps and then through another set of doors, and up some more steps and through another set of doors. It was like this whole building. The level that I was in was at this bottom like water level on the lake. But to get out of the building, you had to keep going like up through the stories, every level of this building. So I kept going up and up and through different sets of doors, and there was this woman in front of me that was also trying to get out, and she was pushing an elderly woman in a wheelchair. But she wasn't being very like assertive about it. She just was like trying to be, you know, like polite or something, I guess. She was just trying to get out of the building, but she wasn't really getting anywhere because people were starting to like flood out of there really fast. And so I told her, let me take the wheelchair and I'll push. And I'm just telling everybody to get out of my way at this point. And then the lady who was pushing the wheelchair started to follow me as I was pushing the older lady in the wheelchair. So we're making our way out of the building. And even though like I was pushing a wheelchair, it didn't seem to matter that there were steps, like there was ramps and stuff. We were able to get out of there, but it took a while. And as we were moving through all the crowds of people trying to get out of there, I kept telling people like, move, open the door for me. I have a lady in a wheelchair, help us. So instead of just like freaking out and people trampling on us, people were moving and opening doors for us and helping us. But I kept yelling to people that were in front of me, like, move, move, I have a lady in a wheelchair. And so me and the woman who was pushing the wheelchair and then the woman in the wheelchair, we were all just getting our way out of this building really fast. And then I knew that there was going to be one more wave. And right before we got out of the building, I knew the third wave was coming. And this other woman kind of appeared as we were like leaving the building. Like we are just starting to get almost to the point where we're outside of the building. And then this wave hit, like just as we were going out. We were finally about to be outside, and then the third wave hit. And the third wave was absolutely massive, and it just destroyed like a huge section of that whole entire building. And people were screaming and people were freaking out, and the whole scene just got like super chaotic. And this building was destroyed, and I knew a bunch of people didn't make it. But me and these people, we had just got out of the building, like just in time. We just reached the outside, like the outdoors. And then I took the woman in the wheelchair and I kind of pushed her off out to the side where people who were running out of the building like couldn't trample her, basically, where she wouldn't get hurt. And I pushed her off to the side, and then I got the other woman who was pushing in her, and I said, there you go, you're out of the building, And then I turned, and there was this other woman. So like as I'm leaving the building, I saw this woman, this other woman. And then as we were outside of the building, I saw her again, and I'm looking at her, and she looked really sad, and she's just standing there by herself. She looked sad, like she was thinking about waiting for some people that were inside of the building, but she also knew that it was basically too late. The people that were still running out of the doors, and they were on the upper levels of this building were the only ones that were making it out, and the people who were in the lower levels, the people who were down at the lake and in the bottom few levels, they just didn't make it out. And she was this woman was standing there, and it was like she knew that the people that she was with weren't coming out. And I just kind of looked at her for a second, and then all of a sudden there was these soldiers that came out, and there was all these tables outside. Like if you were at a big outdoor wedding, there was just these big tables set up everywhere, and it was like really kind of organized looking. And all these soldiers came out, and the soldiers weren't in like camouflage uniforms, they were in like dress uniforms. And these soldiers just kind of appeared, and they started telling the people, and me and all the other people, they started kind of yelling at everybody and saying to sit down. And I could tell like what they were saying, like basically they had a mission, and they had to do something extremely fast, and they needed everybody to just cooperate, and it was going to be over within a minute. But I knew, they were dressed in their dress uniforms, they were soldiers, like something was set up in advance. So I listened and I sat down, but there was a bunch of other people who didn't. People were still scrambling and freaking out, and they just left. They just like ran. But I sat down at one of these tables, and a lot of other people sat down too. And that woman who was waiting for somebody, she sat down right next to me. So as soon as we sat down, all these soldiers started walking around, and they started handing out these little bags. They were like the size of my hand. There was these little green leather bags, and most of the people around me were getting like one or two bags. The soldiers were just handing people these bags, but it wasn't random. Everybody got the bag that they were supposed to get. Like the bags that I got had my last name on them, and everybody around me was getting their own bag. And people who ran, their bags were just getting set on the table, like they weren't getting claimed. And I got like 7 or 8 of these little leather bags, and it seemed to me like everybody else around me was getting like one or two. And as soon as I held these bags in my hand, I knew that they were extremely important. I knew they all had my name on them, and I knew that most of them had keys in them. And I didn't understand yet what the keys were for, but I knew they were important. I knew they were meant specifically for me, and I was glad that I sat down when I was told to sit down by these soldiers and get these keys. So the woman next to me, she got one key, and the soldiers basically finished handing out the keys, and everybody who sat down got their key, and everybody who ran did not get their key, and there was just keys kind of laying around on the table. And as soon as the soldiers were like, "That's it, that's all we need to do, everybody just go now, just get out of here," people started like really freaking out again, and it became really chaotic, and there was a lot of people just like grabbing keys that didn't belong to them. And I knew it was time to get out of there fast. And so I look at the woman that was sitting next to me, the woman that I had seen before, and we both like stood up to walk away and leave at the same time. And she was standing there with that one bag, and she was looking at it, but she was also kind of like looking back, like she still was hoping that somebody was gonna come out that she knew. But I knew that nobody else made it. If they weren't outside right now, they didn't make it. So everybody was outside and like scrambling around and running around. Some people were, trying to loot stuff basically, and there was like a few top levels of the building that were still intact, and there were like stores and stuff in there. I knew people were in there like looting and just going crazy. And I knew we had to get out of there fast. So I turned to this woman, and she's just standing there with her one bag with one key in it. And I said to her, are you on your own now? Are you leaving by yourself now? And she just kind of nodded her head like she had realized that she was, that nobody else was coming out that she was waiting for. And so I said, come on, you can come with me. Let's get out of here. We got to get out of here fast. And so she came with me. She started walking with me, and we're walking out, and there was this huge parking lot in front of us with a ton of cars. And I knew all the cars belonged to the people that were, down at the beach and down at the diner and up in these stores and all up in that building. That all those cars belonged to all those people who, most of them, the majority of them, did not make it out. And you could, in the direction we were going, it was like you could either walk out and go into the parking lot, or you could kind of like veer off to the left, and there was like these big, nice stone steps, kind of like at a big park, and you could walk down these steps, and you could go down to like this park. And I knew we had to just go. We had to go get a car and get out of there. And but the park was like sort of nice looking. It wasn't all destroyed or anything. And the woman who was there, who I said, you can come with me, she started kind of veering off toward those steps going down toward the park. And I just kind of softly grabbed her by the shoulder and I pulled her back toward me and I said, come on, we gotta get one of these cars. We gotta get out of here. We can't go down there. You don't want to go down there, because I knew, even though it looked nice, once you went down there, that's where all the destruction just was, and things were just heating up down there. Things were gonna get worse and worse. So she just followed me, and I knew that like, um, she trusted me. And so at that moment, I had only said a few things to her, and she hadn't said anything to me yet. And we were about to find a car together. And that's when I looked at her and I said, "What's your name anyway?" And she said, "With me. My name is With me." And I knew that it was safe, like that it was blessed, basically, the whole thing. That I could trust this woman and she could trust me. And we were basically meant to get out of there together because things were getting so crazy. There was no way I was going to leave her behind, and I think she knew that she was safe to leave with me, even though stuff was getting really crazy. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, as I was leaving the table with the keys, I stood up and I was about to leave the table, and there was a guy that was sitting across from me at the table, and he pointed to one more bag on the table, and he said, "Take that bag with you. You can take that bag." And I was holding on to like the 7 or 8 bags that the soldiers gave me, and I said, "No, I'm not taking that bag. It's not mine." And I held up my hands with the bags on them, with the bags in them that the soldiers gave me. I said, these are my keys. These are my bags that the soldiers gave me. I'm not taking them. It's not mine." And the guy said, "Look, it's got your name on it." He said, "If you don't take it, somebody else is going to take it. You might as well grab it." And I looked, and it did have my name on it. It had my last name on it. So it was like that key belonged to somebody with my last name, somebody in my family. And I knew he was right, that if I didn't take it, somebody was just going to grab it who had absolutely no right to take it at all. So I took that key. So me, anyway, going back, me and this woman named With Me, we started to leave, and we're walking out toward the parking lot, and I had both my hands wrapped around all these bags full of keys, and she was holding on to her one bag with her one key in it. And we were walking out into this humongous parking lot, and I remember thinking, how the heck am I ever going to find the car? If like one of these keys fits one of these cars, how am I ever going to find the car? There were so many cars, and I didn't know which one was mine. I didn't even know for sure that one of the keys belonged to one of the cars, but I kind of had a feeling it did. But I just thought, look at this parking lot, is huge. I don't know how I'm ever going to find the one car. So as I'm thinking this woman named With Me, she pulls out her key out of her bag, and it has like a key fob on it for a car, and she hits the button and it unlocks a car, and the car happens to be right next to us, as right as we're walking into this parking lot. And I remember I was so amazed I couldn't believe it, that just as she hit the button, the car was right there, just as things were getting like super chaotic. And I was just so thankful and so amazed that the car unlocked right in front of us. And I said, "Come on, let's go. Like this is your car. Let's get out of here. We got no time to waste." And I knew that in a lot of the parking lot, people were breaking into other cars, because there was like really nice cars in this parking lot, and some of the people were trying to grab really nice cars from people who didn't make it out of the building. But she just unlocked her car, and it was funny because it was like this old 80s Honda, like hatchback wagon thing, and it looked like it had 250,000 miles on it. It was all beat up, but she said that it was her car. She knew the car, and she told me that it was a good car and that it didn't look like much, but it was reliable. And I was so happy just to have any car, and a reliable one, that I got in, she got in, she got in the driver's seat, I got in the passenger seat, and the car was so beat up that like the door panel on the inside of the passenger door was all busted up, and I had to reach my hand inside of the cavity of the door and grab the door mechanism and like jiggle it around with my hand in order to get the door to latch around the doorpost. And she's pulling the car out of the parking spot as I'm messing with the passenger door, and I just got it to latch and just got it to fully lock into place, and she's starting to pull out of the parking spot and pull out of the whole parking lot. And I just before I woke up, I was pointing to like where to go, because there were still so many people just running around, messing around, and a very few of those people were getting in cars. And most of them were still looting or just like running around like crazy, or just totally distracted, like freaking out, trying to take a car that didn't belong to them because they thought it was nicer than a car that did belong to them. And we were pulling out of this parking lot, and just before I woke up, I knew that everything was going to be fine. I knew that we were going to make it out of that parking lot, and I was super happy to just have this old car. And it was also a good feeling too, because basically I knew we weren't going to get messed with. This car that we were in was nothing special, it was nothing fancy, and so we were able to just drive off with nobody bothering us. Where if I felt like if we would have had some new fancy car, we would have got basically jumped, and somebody would have tried taking it from us or something, because things were getting so chaotic. But we were able to just drive off in this car, totally left alone, and just about to make it out of this parking lot, and everything was going to be fine. And that's right when I woke up. And pretty soon I'm going to post an interpretation that my wife has about the whole hotel thing in the beginning, like the $89,000, $101,000 a night hotel, because she had a good interpretation about that, and how that hotel in that area had to have had flooded out. So all of the like top echelon, tippity top richest of the rich people who could afford to stay in a hotel that cost that much money, the water level rose to where those people wouldn't have made it out either. Um, and and my wife had also mentioned, when I was telling her about this dream, about how in the book of Joshua, I think it's chapter 6, or maybe like 6 and 7, but it was when Joshua and his army the Israelites were taking down all these armies and stuff around them. They were taking all this land, they were claiming all this stuff. And somebody in one of his armies took stuff that he wasn't supposed to, and then the army of Israel like started losing all their battles, and it was because this one soldier took stuff that didn't belong to him. And in these chapters in the book of Joshua, it talks about how these things were destined for destruction. So I believe that this is extremely relevant to the dream I just had. The fact that my wife was just reading and is reading the book of Joshua as I was telling her about this dream. It was like immediately something that she thought about was the destined for destruction thing. And in the dream, the people who were too busy eating at the diner, they were waiting for some manager or some waitress to tell them what to do, who just wanted their breakfast and they were hoping no more waves would come. As we're fleeing this building and people were looting and like waiting around and just getting totally distracted, destined for destruction. As the soldiers were handing out these keys and people were running around grabbing keys that didn't belong to them, and the people that were stealing cars because they thought they were nice, totally distracted, were destined for destruction. All the stuff that they were doing, all the stuff that they were concerned with was destined for destruction, and it made them destined for destruction. So anybody who is paying attention to the stuff going on, people who are going to hear this video are going to know about the three waves. The waves get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's three waves. The third wave is going to be massive, and there's probably a lot of applications to it, literal and symbolic, and I just felt like I had to post this dream, and like I said, my wife is going to kind of share her interpretation of the whole beginning hotel part because she has an amazing interpretation of it, and then I'll post that too. But I really felt like I had to get this posted as soon as possible. Just remember to keep prayed up, to keep focused, to keep asking the Lord, keep asking God, the Most High God, what it is you're supposed to do, how to get out of this, how to just stay with Him, how to not be distracted by things that are destined for destruction. And just remember that it's about Him, it's about His plan, and you want to just be on board with His plan. So thanks for listening. God bless you.